Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Interesting and important developments are taking place in Pakistan. These are of great significance to Pakistan, of course, but also there is a knock-on significance to India. And particularly, this is coinciding with another set of activities. India holding a meeting of a bunch of national security advisors that includes Russia and Central Asian republics, and Pakistan almost for a tit for tat, holding a meeting of the Troika, which again, Afghan Troika, which has Russia, China, the Pakistanis, that's a Troika, and the Afghan foreign minister also, or the Afghan Taliban foreign minister. I don't know whether we can call him an Afghan foreign minister because that's not a government recognized by anybody. But this is the first foreign visit he's making as his country's minister. And the important thing is that the Chinese and the Russian representation is there in the same meeting. Imran Khan, Muttaki, you see his pictures all the time now, and you will see them more often, and you will see it on our screen also. Now, while those two shows are going on, the real game is being played between the Pakistani establishment, that is the Pakistani army and the intelligence, army plus ISI, and two militant groups, two very powerful militant groups. One purely a terror group which fights, carries out suicide bombings, has done terrible things over the past many years, almost for 2 decades, about a decade and a half. That is Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, TTP. And the other is Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, TLP, that we had spoken about last week. And I will share with you a link of that episode as well. That is where we had mentioned to you that Tehreek-e-Labbaik, which has been demanding the return or sending back of the French ambassador and many other things also, as what they saw as the French government offending Muslims by charging with murder the person who had killed Samuel Paty, the teacher, who allegedly had displayed the cartoons about the Holy Prophet in his class. That we spoke about. Now, what's happened in Pakistan right now is that until now, Pakistan government has not yet revealed their signed agreement with the TLP. They had a meeting of a kind of National Security Council or a kind of National Security Council of Pakistani Parliament, where briefings were held by top army officers, and they were told about the agreement, it seems that nobody who came out of that meeting was willing to talk about this, because when the army is involved, people keep the secret. Nobody wants to take a chance. Even Bilawal Bhutto Zardari did not speak about the agreement. He just said that whatever you do should be approved by Parliament. Now, that agreement, it looks like from the Pakistani media, particularly people I follow and people who I find are quite reliable, they are saying that this parliamentary committee was told that government will wait for 10 more days before revealing the contents of this written agreement with Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan. Some outcome of that you've seen already. People have melted away, protesters have melted away from the streets and the highways. So those are being emptied out. And also these are the TLP protesters. And also we've seen a whole bunch of TLP people released from prisons. Now this is the TLP which Pakistan's Information Minister Fawad Chaudhry had described just the other day as a militant organization funded by India, a pro-India, India-supported militant organization. Now Pakistan has made a deal with them. The organization has obviously been unbanned. The ban has been lifted. It's no longer a terrorist or militant organization. Its cadres are being released, but the agreement is yet to be made public. And once again, if I read Fahad Hussain in Dawn, and he's quite a well-informed Pakistani journalist, he says his sources have told him that's because the army doesn't want that a civil society debate will start on this agreement, which means people start saying it's a sellout, this, etc., etc. And that may then cause confusion, and these protesters then may not leave. So let them first go away, then we will reveal the details of the agreement. Now, this has been going on, but at the same time, another set of developments is taking place between the Pakistani establishment, again the military and the intelligence, and Pakistan's biggest internal security threat. That is Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Now, the Taliban are not a monolith. Taliban are many factions, many organizations, even in Afghanistan. There are many factions, many organizations, and we saw the difficulties they had when it came to setting up a cabinet. Who gets what? It looks like the Haqqani faction or the Haqqani network took the lion's share of power there. But that besides, these factions apart, there are two clear streams of the Taliban. One is the Afghan Taliban, and the other is the Pakistani Taliban. Ideologically, in terms of their religion or religious orientation or their quote-unquote spiritual orientation, they come from the same place. But the Pakistani Taliban do not bother about Afghanistan, they bother about Pakistan. They want to convert Pakistan only into a kind of an Islamic state. In this mishmash, there is also Islamic State of Khorasan, Pakistan, which has a completely different agenda. They don't want to, quote unquote, liberate Pakistan for Islam. They want to create an Islamic state in a much larger geographic region, which includes Afghanistan, Pakistan, parts of Iran, and maybe even parts of India. So that is the old concept of the province of Khorasan. That's why Islamic State, Khorasan, Pakistan. Now, they are a threat to Afghanistan. They are a little bit of a threat to Pakistan, but TTP is purely a threat to Pakistan. TTP has carried out major terror attacks in Pakistan, many suicide bombings, and among the most prominent actions, the most notorious actions they've carried out was the attack on Army Public School in Peshawar in 2014, in which 145 people, mainly school children, were killed. That was a terrible massacre. 6 of these terrorists walked in dressed like Pakistani army soldiers and just killed Pakistani army. Why was TTP killing Pakistani army? Because they wanted to destroy the authority of the Pakistani state and then expand their reign from Waziristan area in Pakistan's frontier areas everywhere. After that, Pakistani army carried out that massive operation in which air power was freely used, Zarb-e-Azb, which led to the dislocation of more than 1 million people. It was quite a brutal and sizable operation because that was an army fighting in revenge for its children who had been killed. Now, it is with that organization. By the way, it is also TTP, one of whose leaders had shot Malala Yousafzai, who just got married yesterday, so our best wishes to her. She survived. These guys climbed into the bus in which she was riding, asked for who's Malala, and then shot her like this. She was very fortunate to survive. Anyway, so these are really bad guys. Now the Pakistanis are talking to them. As we speak, just 2 days back, a ceasefire was announced. Now it's been confirmed by the TTP side also. The ceasefire is for 30 days right now, from 9th November to 9th December. And they say that this ceasefire is extendable and there is a lot of goodwill in these talks and we don't know where this will end up, etc., etc. Pakistani authorities are saying, and Fawad Chaudhry also has said, the information minister, that Afghan Taliban government is playing the role of a good intermediary in this. Now, it's all, anything to do with these areas gets a little bit confusing. Afghan Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Masood said that we are not intervening or we are not mediating, but he says, I can't rule out some local level involvement of the Taliban in host area. Now, host area is where the Haqqanis come from, because Haqqanis draw their fame from Host province, right? The big siege of Host. The Zadran tribe that Haqqanis come from is from thereabouts. So today the interior minister of Afghanistan is Sirajuddin Haqqani, the most prominent figure in that government. And he's been traveling to this area and he's made no secret of the fact that he's mediating. It is with his mediation that Pakistan is now negotiating with TTP. Pakistani establishment thinks that TTP is negotiating with a position of weakness and Pakistanis are in a position of strength. So they think they can have a deal. Maybe it will take more than a month, but this will go on and this, they say, will entail TTP accepting the Pakistani constitution and the laws and laying down their arms. Now that is very optimistic because whatever else in those parts of the subcontinent, the Pakistani frontier region and Afghan regions adjoining them, there is no real tradition of laying down arms. it's impossible almost to find anybody unarmed. When once people have arms, they are loath to give them up. Now, this has obviously led to protests. This has obviously led to also a lot of criticism that how can you negotiate with, how can you give amnesty, because TTP also wants amnesty for their cadres. And they've also said that the ceasefire will begin once you make a symbolic gesture of goodwill by releasing some of our people. Pakistani side is at pains to say that we are releasing nobody of consequence, no leaders, deputy leaders, we are only releasing some foot soldiers. Whatever it is, they are releasing a few dozen people to show their goodwill. So TTP thinks that they are heading for amnesty. That's got a lot of people angry, and a lot of people with army connections also, because they say these are the guys who killed our children. How can you give them amnesty and make peace with them? So they've attempted to hold protests, particularly family members of the children killed in APS attack. But as this tweet tells you, and as this little video tells you, the state authorities, the police and the local paramilitaries have thwarted these protests. They do not want these protests taking place because the Pakistani state wants to now make peace with Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Now, why are they so keen to do it? Once again, there can be a lot of analysis. So this is the analysis from the Pakistani side. I will talk later about the consequences and concerns for India. The analysis from the Pakistani side, which I read from Fahd Hussein's article, which I'll share with you, is one, that Pakistani side thinks that India was the primary supporter, funder, armor of the TTP so that they could create trouble in Pakistan. This is their view, not my view. I'm not endorsing it. And they think that now that India has cleared out of Afghanistan with the dramatic rise of the Taliban there, this is the time to make a deal with Taliban because they are weak. They've lost their Indian backing and other foreign backing. In the course of time, 6-8 months, India will come back in some way there. India is trying and others will come back. So this is the time when they are weak. This is the time they might make a deal. Number two, Taliban, Afghan Taliban, who are now trying to consolidate their rule over Afghanistan, which is very difficult to govern anyway. They are now very dependent on Pakistan because no country recognizes them. Pakistan has not given them de jure recognition, but de facto recognition is there, and China is a partner with Pakistan. So they are more dependent on Pakistan right now. They need Pakistan's help. So they are more likely to intervene on Pakistan's behalf and lean on TTP to be good boys once again. And number three, they say that now that Afghanistan war is over and it's been won, Pakistan's military is ready for a massive operation against TTP. When TTP is at its weakest, it's lost whatever support it had, and also people who were generally letting it be in those areas, they no longer have sanctuaries in Afghanistan, which they had earlier under the Ghani regime. So that's why they think, three reasons, that Pakistan is in a good position to get TTP to agree to a quote-unquote reasonable solution. Now, Imran Khan has also confirmed some of this in his interview to TRT Network. TRT now seems to be the favorite media network for Pakistani leaders and Pakistani establishment. That in a way also reflects the warming Pakistan-Turkey ties. It's also generally believed that the current chief of TTP, that is Mufti Noor Wali Masood, he has participated in these talks as well. So these are happening at quite a senior level. Now, I know by this time, everybody is curious also to know about what is TTP, from where did it come in, who's this new batter who's come out now to bat, right? Because Afghan Taliban are busy doing their own stuff and they are not fighting anymore. So TTP, ISKP we know about, but TTP is something that's been around for definitely 15 years, maybe close to 20 years. These were many of these right-wing, militant, armed organizations in Pakistan's frontier districts who did not quite like the constitutional authority, who wanted an Islamic state kind of system, Islamic rule, a proper Nizam-e-Mustafa, Sharia rule in Pakistan. They were brought together. 13 such groups were brought together in 2007 by a man called Baitullah Masood. And I will tell you what happened to Baitullah Masood and his successors. So Baitullah Masood brought them together in 2007. After that, there were some other splinter groups, some splintered away from this, some new ones were formed elsewhere. In 2020, they further carried out a consolidation, came back. So Amjad Farooqi group, one faction of Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, which is again a Pakistani fundamentalist extremist group, they joined in. Then Momand Agency, that's one of the areas or say districts in the Pakistani frontier. The Tehreek-e-Taliban of that agency also joined this group, and then others from other agencies, that is say Bajaur, and then a couple of factions of Hizbul Ehrar. Ehrar means free, so Hizbul Ehrar means the Assembly of the Free, right? They also merged. So 2020, they became a much stronger organization. All of them came together. Now, what happens to their leadership and who are their leaders? So Baitullah Masood, you've heard his name because he was talked about a lot a few years back. Baitullah Masood in 2009 was killed by a CIA drone. A CIA-ISI joint operation. He was, as they say, droned. 2009 at the age of 39. So life expectancy of these leaders, commanders is not very high. They live on borrowed time. He was succeeded by a man called Hakimullah Masood, and that time there were rumors that Hakimullah Masood is having a sort of big fight with Waliur Rahman over succession. Hakimullah Masood is from the same tribe, right, as Baitullah Masood, but they are not directly related. They may be tribal kinship, but they are not directly. He's not a son or a brother. So Hakimullah Masood and Waliur Rahman, the rumors for a long time were that they had a fight. There was a shura. Shura is a gathering of tribal elders to decide the successor to Baitullah Masood, and there was a fight in which Waliur Rahman was killed or the other was killed. The fact later turned out that Waliur Rahman had also been killed in a US drone strike, and Hakimullah Masood took over. Hakimullah Masood was also killed the same way by a CIA drone, again a CIA ISI operation in 2013. He lived all of 34 years. I told you these guys don't live very long. His successor was Fazal Hayat. That is the third leader of TTP. Fazal Hayat was also known as Maulana Faizullah. He was quite an urbane sort of looking guy until he became a mullah and also became famous as Maulana Radio. Right? Why Maulana Radio? Because he used to use, he had access or he had built a pirate radio station from which long sermons were given. And he grew a lot of following, became a cult figure among the believers in that area, including a lot of the women. And he is the one who apparently carried out the attack on Malala Yousafzai. He was generally called as Mullah Radio, Maulana Radio, Maulvi Radio, etc., etc. Pakistani army carried out many operations. He kept on surviving, but finally he was put away. He was put away in a drone attack again at the age of 43. So once again, did not live long. The current chief is Noor Wali Masood. Again, not a direct descendant of any of the Masoods, but a tribal cousin. So there is tribal kinship. So Noor Wali Masood is the current chief. He also has an alias, which is Abu Mansoor Asim. And he is the one who's now leading the talks. And since we are talking about Pakistan and talking about the region, yesterday was the birth anniversary of Iqbal, Muhammad Iqbal, the poet. And we know that we have our national song, not national anthem, national song, Sare Jahan Se Achha Hindustan Hamara, Hum Bulbule Hain Iski, Ye Gulstan Hamara, और सब जगह बजता है. I mean, it's played at all official functions, defense parades, military parades, etc., schools, colleges. And it has some great lines. मजहब नहीं सिखाता आपस में बैर रखना, हिंदी हैं हम वतन है हिंदुस्तान हमारा. That religion doesn't teach you to hate each other. Whoever we are Indians and this is our country. Very nationalistic, Indian nationalistic sentiments. Now we carried two articles about this yesterday. One from Rajmol Hoda, who's an IPS officer. One from Mr. Faizi, who writes a weekly column now for us from Patna. Now both pointed out the fact that is very well understood and appreciated by those who know Iqbal, but new generations don't know so much about him, because when you ask people in India, Iqbal, Sare Jahan Se Achha Hindustan Hamara. But like all great characters, all great players of that period, pre-independence period, he also was a multi-layered personality. So the same man who wrote सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा, मजहब नहीं सिखाता आपस में बैर रखना. Now these columnists of ours have reminded us that he also wrote, within a few years of that, he wrote something else. And that was on the same pattern. And that was Chino Arab Hamara, Hindustan Hamara. That means Chin in this case means Central Asia, right? Chino Arab Hamara, Hindustan Hamara, Muslim hai hum watan hai, Sara Jahan Hamara. So you can go to Google, you can go to YouTube, you can find this. And you will find this set to military marching, martial music or Islamicized martial music on many Pakistani platforms, because that then goes on glorifying the ideas of a pan-Islamic state, of Muslims ruling the world, and sort of harks back to the conquest of Saladin, harks back to the Muslim conquest of parts of Europe. One line there particularly is, "E Gulistan-e-Andalus, wo din hai yaad tujhko, tha teri daliyon par jab aashiyan hamara." So Andalus is Andalusia. Andalusia is a part of Spain, southern Spain, which Muslim conquerors had ruled for quite some time. So he is bringing up nostalgia about that. So the same man who wrote one, he also wrote the other, and he then became a pure pan-Islamist and somebody who became a great supporter of Islamic supremacy. So people change, and it's important for us to understand that change. It is not to condemn whatever they might have done earlier, but change has to be acknowledged and understood even by today's generation. So there was Iqbal part A, Hindustan, सारे जहां से अच्छा है हिंदुस्तान हमारा. Iqbal part B, Muslim है हम वतन है, सारा जहां हमारा. And you know what? A lot of the leftist poets at that point, shairs, were not happy with this turn that Iqbal had taken. So I don't know, I've not seen the references, so I can't confirm this to you. But when Sahir Ludhianvi, whose anniversary also we recently had, he wrote a song for Raj Kapoor film Fir Subah Hogi, he used the same line, Chino Arab Hamara. Now you remember those lines, think of those lines. You've all heard that song, Chino Arab Hamara, Hindustan Hamara, रहने को घर नहीं है, सारा जहां हमारा, right? So to me, it sounds like he was mocking Iqbal. And then it goes on to say, तालीम है अधूरी, my education is incomplete, मिलती नहीं मजूरी, I get no work to do, footpath बम्बई के हैं आशियाँ हमारा, and my home is the footpaths of Bombay. So that to me is like Sahir Ludhianvi, who's a brilliant leftist, genuine liberal poet. He's showing the mirror to this idea of Islamic supremacism from Iqbal.